59 overnight. Currently mostly sunny and 59. Your next news is at 9, and Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So details on that mass stabbing incident that occurred in Boston area. A dude who uses she, her pronouns. And interestingly, the account you're about to hear from Boston's NBC affiliate refers to him properly as a he, because he's a dude.
Okay.
But
he wears dresses.
He's apparently on the gender spectrum of some sort, and then he just was going around randomly stabbing people, including 4 girls at a movie theater under the age of 18.
Now, he is the man believed to have stabbed 6 people, including 4 girls, all under the age of 18. This before leading police on a chase that ended on the Cape. But, of course, today's hearing pertained only to what happened in Plymouth. And for that incident, he is facing armed assault to murder, 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and indecent exposure. Police say after allegedly stabbing the 4 girls in Braintree, Revisa took off in a dark SUV, headed to Plymouth, where he stopped at a McDonald's on Route 3. At that McDonald's, police say he urinated in public, prompting an altercation with a 28-year-old man with a knife described as a long kitchen knife. Police say Revisa stabbed the man before going inside the McDonald's, where he stabbed a 21-year-old woman. Both are expected to survive. But after fleeing that scene, police found his car in Sandwich, where he led them on a pursuit before crashing. Now, it should be noted, he is also linked to a death investigation in Deep River, Connecticut.
So that's probably the last we'll be hearing about that story, or maybe we'll hear more about it right after we get the manifesto from the Nashville school shooter.
Uh-huh. That wasn't on nightly news.
No, it
wasn't on anything. It wasn't on CBS. That did not make the cable news channels at all.
Well, and again, this is not to say that every person who's identifying as something other than a biological sex is violent or is prone to violence, because, of course, that's not true. But it is to say that it's okay to generalize about some groups of people that you don't like based on their political beliefs mainly, and to some extent their skin color. Like, I mean, I'm talking about people who just are out, railing against honkies all the time. But it's not okay to talk about people that may have some mental health issues and may be a danger to themselves or others. Right. Just as we were talking about previously, last segment, about that 29-year-old girl who signed up for the Dutch government to kill her. Maybe there are other interventions that should be made with young people who are struggling with mental health issues. But it's certainly not going to come from these global organizations from whom our public health officials take their cues, and so many in our medical profession, and so many in the professional associations within the medical profession, the experts. I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but this dude named Teddy Cook, a female-to-male trans Australian activist who considers himself a professional queer and man of trans experience, he writes openly about his interest in, bondage and S&M. He's got pictures online that would make Sam Britton blush, and he
look him up right now.
And he posted images of a dog having sex with a man.
Oh God!
He has been he's been retained by the WHO as one of their experts in terms of how to care for trans and non-binary people.
Oh, he's in a bestiality, and they hired him. Did they not look at his social media profile and his pictures before they hired the dude, or is that why they hired him?
Well, yes, therein lies the rub, pun intended.
Hey.
For more on what's happening with the Lavender Bund and who's really winning the day, as we still see male athletes beating women in women's sports at the high school level. Riley Gaines does a nice job of documenting all that for us. I'm interested in our next guest's book because it doesn't feel like the tide is really turning. It feels like maybe it's slowing temporarily. It feels like maybe some people feel more comfortable speaking sense, because of the leadership of people like Riley Gaines, for example, Abigail Schreier. But do I sense a tide turning? Mary Margaret Olohan is senior reporter for the Daily Signal. Her new book is Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult, which releases May 28th. That would be, yesterday. It's released. It's out. Go
It's
get
out.
it. Detrans is the name of the book. Mary Margaret Olohan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, tell us a story. Tell us a happy story about somebody that was spared mutilation at the hands of their parents and a doctor, and is like a Chloe Cole, although she wasn't spared the mutilation, and is providing leadership that is going to walk us back from this from the precipice of this abyss.
Well, I know you were saying you're a little worried that we're not on the turnaround here, but I would argue that some of these stories should give us hope. These are young people that I document in my book who tried to transition, which we know is impossible. They tried to become a boy if they were a girl, or a girl if they were a boy, and then realized after attempted hormonal and surgical transition that this is impossible. And they really did have to endure a lot of horrific mental and physical suffering as they went through these attempts. But now that they're on the other side, they've become really influential advocates who can speak out against these types of procedures and gender ideology in general. And part of the reason that gives me hope is because they didn't have anyone doing that for them. When they were trying to transition, they would look around on the internet and there was no other voices except the pro-trans advocates calling for gender transitions. And so they were really alone. They felt like they only had one set of voices to listen to. And now part of the reason they're speaking out is because they want to give people another perspective. And that's what I'm trying to do with this book, is to just lay out the real stories of detransitioners who tried to go down this path and experienced all of it themselves, and now can share the story of what actually happened to them. Because, we have a lot of commentators that are much smarter than I am, including some of my friends like Jay Richards at the Heritage Foundation, or Ryan Anderson, or Abigail Schreier. And they've written an excellent commentary on all of this, on how it harms people, why it's wrong, and the roots, etc. This book is a reported book. It's about their stories. And I wanted people who might not even be conservative be able to pick it up and just read the stories and be, understand what went on here, even if they are not totally aligned with conservative sentiments.
No, the stories are important. And like as Chloe Cole, Prisha Mosley are two stories that come to mind. You remember the stories because of the suffering of those young girls and how courageous they were to come forward and be so open about what happened and how wrong they were, they realize now. And to your point, too, about, the lack of sort of any checks on, their own decision making, where were the adults and the medical professionals and so forth. So give us a one of the stories from the book that underscores what you're describing.
Well, what I do in the book is I weave a lot of their stories together. So I try and start out by getting into what kind of family relationships they all had, these 5 detransitioners that I really focus on, what their relationships with their family were like, what kind of social media they were using, whether they were getting along with people at school, etc., where they were first exposed to gender ideology, and who was talking to them about it at school, or what kind of therapists were they interacting with. all of these beginning stages to help people understand how this starts to happen. And I think a good story to share is Prisha Mosley, who is a detransitioner who has become a really outspoken advocate as well. Prisha was sadly assaulted when she was a young girl, and that assault made her really dislike her feminine body, made her want to get away from it. She very sadly became pregnant as a result of this rape, and her body was too frail from anorexia to carry that baby, and so she miscarried. And this was deeply traumatic for her on top of the assault, that her body couldn't withstand pregnancy and care for the baby. And so she was deeply traumatized by both the rape and her miscarriage. And that, combined with her interactions with gender ideologists online, convinced her that she should try and get out of her body because she was actually a boy. And so Prisha went on testosterone. She underwent a double mastectomy. And I chronicle all of this in my book. A lot of intimate, vulnerable details that you wouldn't be able to get from a quick news hit or a tweet. This is, for example, I share a story about how her mother had to wash the wounds of her double mastectomy wounds, and how this was a very upsetting and emotional moment for both of them to kind of come to terms with what had happened. And, as a mother, I am not a mother, but I can only imagine as a mother the pain that would come from seeing your child in such a position. And Prisha's parents were in a situation that is not unique to many of these stories, because, there are many parents out there who wish to transition their children out of, very selfish and evil and narcissistic reasons. And it's about the parents. It's about their own identity. They want the street creds. But I think that's a unique situation. And in many cases, what's happening is a young girl like Prisha, who needs parental consent for these procedures, goes to her parents and says, I think I'm a boy, and the doctor told me that I'm only going to find relief in trying to transition. And the parents, who are just, average parents, they're secular, they're not super in tune with politics or religion, and they don't really know what to do, but they love their daughter. So they think, okay, we'll take her to a mental health professional, and they do. And that mental health professional, unfortunately, will typically affirm and tell the child, yes, you are a boy, you're right, your parents should affirm you. And they take the parents aside, and even if the parents have scruples, they'll say, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, were they all told that? I
Right.
mean, when you research for the book?
Yes. All
Every
of the
single
parents
one.
every parent of a detransitioner I spoke to was told this. And it scares them because they love their child, and they think, this doctor's telling me that if I don't go along with this and allow my child to undergo these procedures, my child's going to kill herself, and it'll be my fault. It's a threat to the parent. If you don't comply, your kid will be dead because of you.
And Prisha is suing the doctors that essentially advocated for this, isn't she?
She is. She's represented by Campbell Miller Payne, which is a law firm that is representing detransitioners. Very brave of them. Harmeet Dillon and her law firm are also representing detransitioners. Most notably, Chloe Cole in her lawsuits against the medical providers that transitioned her.
Yeah, see, this is part of this needs to be part of the approach, I think, because with the CAS report coming out across the pond in Britain that has changed NHS policy with respect to providing puberty blockers and these other transitioning medications and procedures for minors, and then this story out of this new study that just came out. Researchers find that 68 transgender men who participated in a study, of the 68, 95% of those who were going from female to male developed pelvic floor dysfunction after taking the hormone to transition from male to female, essentially for taking testosterone. The study identified bladder and bowel problems like incontinence in the participants as young as 18. With an average age of 28, doctors would usually expect such symptoms in postmenopausal women. And so now you can't say, you didn't. I mean, first of all, obviously as a medical professional, you should know you start playing Mr. Potato Head with somebody's entire body and there's going to be negative consequences. So this should be known. And this litigation piece, it seems to me, is an important part of the strategy to tamp down this sort of science-free political advocacy coming from doctors and hospitals.
Right, and I think that some of the news reporting we've seen recently, such as the expose of the WPATH files, has been showing us what we already knew, is that, but thankfully it's coming out more and more in the news lately, that these procedures are experimental, that the doctors and therapists who are pushing them and acting so confident in their efficacy have no idea how they're going to affect people. The WPATH files showed that these so-called experts were aware that the testosterone was causing tumors in girls, that it was causing infertility, that they genuinely didn't think that some of these kids with the mental health problems that they were experiencing could actually give informed consent to these procedures, which we all already were aware of, and we're not even medical professionals. So there's a level of willful blindness that's been going on, willful blindness and straight up evil adherence to ideology over science. This should very much scare all of us.
Mary Margaret Olohan is senior reporter for the Daily Signal. Her new book, Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. Detrans is the name of the book. It is out now. Pick it up. Mary Margaret Olohan, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Our communities deserve to have their tax dollars spent efficiently. All over Chicagoland, there is an increased need for vital projects like wetland improvements, enhancing water quality, or stormwater mitigation to protect homes against devastating floods. Too often, public officials find themselves at